bother me in there.
We see you once in a while reading.
Yeah. You know, and it's good to be seen, and it's good to once in a while be able to have the privilege of coming into the building, but I do miss seeing people. Once in a while I see people at the grocery store, but that's about it.
I was on a Zoom meeting the other day, and Rick Negus's cat walked right across the screen this way a couple times. So dogs and cats, what's the, no problem.
I like that.
I do too. It was fun.
That humanizes the process.
It
I like
does.
it. Yeah. Oh my.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mother
Good
Jen.
morning.
As you have, I think, discovered, you were muted upon entering this call. I would ask you to mute yourselves if you've unmuted yourself, except when you want to be heard. We do not want to hear people accidentally. Such things happen. Also, be somewhat mindful that if you take your phone with you when you leave the room, be careful where you're taking it, because we can see what you can see. Or we can, you know, anyhow, just be careful. Good Zoom etiquette would be helpful. We're just a couple minutes before the announced starting time, or just maybe a minute, so I'm going to just offer those opening instructions. I do want to tell you that I am recording this Zoom call. I expect that I will make it available at some point, this recording of the meeting, on our website and/or a link to it on our Facebook group. So do note that. If you haven't picked up a copy of the written report for this day's annual meeting, you can get it online. It is available on our website. Dan included a link to it in the email she sent out on Thursday. Copies of the printed report will be available in the days to come, again online, or a hard copy outside the office door. So you can find it any number of ways. I am amazed and delighted to see so far we have 37 participants, 39 participants. The number fluctuates a bit. Judy Warren, our clerk, will attempt to keep minutes. I don't know who user is because there's nobody showing, but she will make her best guesses as to how many people turned out for the annual meeting. It's hard when you've got 30, 40 participants, but I see 2 people in several frames. So I'm actually kind of pleased. I didn't know who to expect to show up today at our annual meeting, our 2021 annual meeting. I'll start with a question for the group. You can, oh, this is a good training. You know how to do a chat, anybody? This is your test. I'm going to ask you a question. How much does corn cost in the state of Florida? How much does corn cost in the state of Florida?
A buccaneer.
A buccaneer! There you go! In case you missed it, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play the Green Bay Packers today. Kickoff is scheduled for 1:05, I believe. There you have it. Kickoff at 1:05. I expect to be home by the end of the first quarter, but I'm recording it, so if I go long, I won't miss anything. If you want to catch the game, you know, we'll get you off here before the first quarter's over, I expect. But time will tell. Wait, 1:05? 12:05, I think, is kickoff. I'm sorry, I said 1:05. I think it's 12:05. So in about a half hour from now. But the meeting won't, I don't think, will be over by then. I don't think, however, it's going to go all the way through the first quarter. All right, let me see. Recording the meeting and reading my notes to myself. Recording the meeting. Remind you again to mute yourself unless you want to be heard. Unless you want to be heard, keep yourself muted. Be aware of what we can see on the screen. So you might want to do that. It might be helpful and of interest to you to switch from this gallery view, which is, I think, the default for people. So I see 25 squares, I think, in front of me right now. It might be helpful for you to switch to speaker view, which is on the top of your screen, just because we'll be a little bit bigger, those of us who are speaking, which means mostly me. But, you know, it's not all bad. Maybe sometimes you'll get something else to look at. So that's where we are. I hereby call this meeting to order, and I begin, as I do, with an opening prayer for a church convention or meeting. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, source of all wisdom and understanding, be present with those who take counsel for the renewal and mission of your church. Teach us in all things to seek first your honor and glory. Guide us to perceive what is right and grant us both the courage to pursue it and the grace to accomplish it. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. I'll call upon the clerk of the vestry, secretary for this meeting, to confirm that we have a quorum. I remind you first that our bylaws stipulate the following, quote, "Those members present who are entitled to vote shall constitute a quorum." It's a really low bar. If you're present, and you are, I think we will have a quorum confirmed. Judy.
I affirm that there is a quorum present.
Oh, excellent. That is so good. 47 computers or phones logged on now. I don't know how many people that is. I'll leave it to Judy to try and see if she can figure that out at her leisure. I refer you, and this is normally a time when I take a bite of my sandwich. I refer you to page 4 of our printed report. Pages 4, 5, and 6 are the minutes from last year's annual meeting. I refer you there, and I will give you just a moment to find your place. I'm not going to let you have 5 minutes to read through because I don't have a sandwich to eat today anyhow. But when someone is ready to move adoption of the minutes, I will entertain such a motion.
Jed, I have one correction.
And I'm sorry, who's talking?
This is Debbie Welch.
Hi, Debbie, yes.
In section 4, election of vestry,
Yes.
the title, it should be Mark Williams, not Mark Welch.
In the bold print. Thank you. I see it. Judy, do you see what she's talking about? Thank you.
So with that correction, I move that we accept the minutes from 2020.
Thank you. I see Barbara Reynolds raising her hand. I'll take that as a second. If there's no more discussion, here's the first trick I've learned in the last week and a half. Find your computers and vote. Well, you're doing so well. The voting is slowing down. I see 42 of 46 computers. I'm 47. I don't get to vote apparently this way. 42 of 46 have voted. I am closing the voting. I show that we have accepted the minutes as slightly amended. Thank you. And if I did it right, that box disappeared from your screens. Oh, excellent. Keeping myself along. First on the agenda after that, you'll note, is the rector's address. And I will tell you that at the very last minute, I decided to do something badly. But I did something this morning, and I'm tired of sitting here in front of a screen and talking, so I'm going to let you, hang on a second, I got to do something. Yeah, I'm doing something else badly, aren't I? One moment, please. There will be two versions of this year's State of the Cure address. There is the official one, which I will post. I'll ask Bill Brisson to post to our website So by the end of the day, you should see the official report. In the meantime, I give you this report on the state of the cure. Recorded this morning. Oh, I'm stopping. Hang on a second. Before I do this, I should stop talking. Sorry, folks. I really do know how to use my toys, I promise. Good morning. It is a strange time we're living in. I want to begin my address to you this morning by reminding you of what I said at the end of my address last year at the end of my State of the Cure address to the congregation in 2020. I said then, we enter into a new year, into 2020, without 2020 vision. Rarely have I been so prescient. This year has been a year filled with hardships and challenges, and I began with the observation that amongst all the hardships and challenges has been the reality that we don't gather the way we want to. Brooks Hall stands empty and has for all these many months stood empty. We still have signs of last year when we stopped meeting together in the middle of Lent. Lent madness from last year stands not entirely completed. That bracket does. But amongst all the changes and all the hardships and all the challenges is the awareness that there have been deep losses for our congregation this past year. I think particularly of the deaths. I think of the dull ache born of not being able to gather in the ways that we want to gather, to share our grief and to console one another. But amidst all this, we've kept the faith. I have from the very beginning of this pandemic reminded you, called you, and exhorted you to hold fast to the confidence that though we do not gather at the church, still we gather as the church. And that is still the truth of it. And you have demonstrated the truth of that week in and week out. We've gathered together for worship in ways that we didn't imagine a year ago. We've gathered together to experience YouTube and Facebook Live in ways we didn't know we could a year ago. And it has continued to work for us. I thank you for all the ways in which you demonstrate that though we do not gather at the church, we still gather as the church. These gatherings here are possible because of the gifts people have brought to bear on the life of this congregation. I think of the financial gifts that have allowed us to purchase new equipment. I think of the intellectual gifts brought to bear by a tech team who pooled their knowledge and insights into what we do in order to establish some new possibilities for us here. I think of musicians who bring their creative and energetic talents to bear on allowing us to enjoy worship, albeit in a different way. I give thanks for folks like Christian here setting up for this morning's worship. I give thanks in a particular way to Bill Brisson, who has really done the heavy lifting on this new equipment, setting it up week by week and sharing it with all of you, bringing it to fruition. We may not gather at the church, but still we gather as the church. I think also, though I'm not going to go down there, of Family Kitchen. I'll walk around, I guess, as I do. But Family Kitchen, I remind you, has not still missed a meal. Family Kitchen continues to carry on faithfully that ministry for our community. I think of the kids helped by Cove Copy. I'm going to stay away from people now, so I'm going to take this mask off. But I think of the kids helped by Cove Copy, and I think of the creative energy brought to bear and how we can continue to make Cove Copy work. Zoom to Santa, which I must tell you isn't an easy thing to contemplate, but Zoom to Santa happened this year, and we raised funds from folks in other parts of the world to help kids in special need. I think of alternative giving. My goodness, the amazing support you all offered for alternative giving this year. Hang on a second, I got to use my little fob to open the door. Again, there's the bulletins and such left out. I think of, as I was saying, whoops. I think of alternative giving. I think of the ways in which you all have helped out with that. So much that you have done in so many amazing ways. I want to share with you a letter written by Mary Piper. She's a priest, a friend, a colleague from the Diocese of Oregon. Mary lives in Ashland, I think, these days, certainly in the Rogue Valley. And after the devastating fires this last year, Mary reached out to folks, but we reached out in turn. And she sent a letter talking about all the things they did, and at the end she tacked on a personal letter for those of us here at Trinity, saying, "Oh my goodness, you have showered this hurting valley with so much love and care. Thank you. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for the amazing gift cards that helped a lot of people, and for your outreach to us. People tell me they can't believe strangers from another town would do this for them, and that it brings them light and hope. Thanks for being Christ's hands in our community." So that too is the message that we bring. We may not gather at the church, but still we gather and live as the church in the world. We support one another in ways old and new. I think of using old technology to support one another and what a gift that can be. Phone calls made. There are some of you I know who get together outdoors, safely distanced, walking together in parks and the like. I think of the Kids Corner team, the Children's Chapel team, call them what you will, but the teachers, the leaders there who share their gifts with one another and put together packets to mail out to kids, old-fashioned mailings, kids to sheets to color and stickers to stick. Old technologies still work in some remarkable ways in a time like this. So stay in touch with each other, keep calling each other. But I also think of the new ways that we've done things. There was a Facebook group in existence a year ago, but there were hardly any people in it. I think 3 or 4 literally in the Facebook group. Well, that Facebook group has well over 100, I think well over 125 now. People get together and they share humor and inspiration and just getting together that way. I think of other ways in which we've used Zoom this year, including this annual meeting, the ways in which we use Zoom this year to do really wonderful things. We meet with each other to build our shared life together. Men's breakfast has continued. The women's group have continued to meet. Pastoral care team has continued to meet to support each other in our congregation. We've checked in with each other using Zoom on a couple of new occasions. 4 o'clock on Tuesdays, we gather for checking in and for prayers. On Fridays at 4 o'clock, it's social hour, happy hour, you call it what you will. And of course, we've used Zoom for business meetings. Our stewardship team has met, finance committee has met, vestry has met, wardens have met, building and grounds have met. We've had all these meetings carrying on using Zoom. We've zoomed in ways new to us. And while I'm thinking of those business pieces of things, let me just say a word briefly about finances. There's a lot of good news there to share, and I thank you for that. I thank you for that. I'm going to leave the details to Terry Ramsdorf, but we couldn't do any of what we're doing now were it not for what you've done faithfully these past 10 months now. We may not gather at the church, and yet we still gather as the church. You've proven it Without you, those words would ring hollow. Because of you, those words ring of truth and hope and love. And so I thank you for that. We may not gather at the church, and yet we gather still as the church. So I thank you. I thank you for your support from beginning to end, because none of this would be possible without that support. I think of support from the presiding bishop, Michael Curry, who has said to us consistently since well before the pandemic, has said to us consistently, love God, love your neighbor, and while you're at it, love yourself. The clarity of his vision have steeled my resolve, our resolve to do what's right for ourselves and for the community, to support healthcare workers, to help the world. Love God, love your neighbor, love yourself. That's why we refrain from meeting together in person in these times. So I thank you. I thank Bishop Curry for his leadership, his vision, but truthfully I allow that it would be hard to maintain our resolve were it not with everyone else. I thank the wardens and the vestry who have been clear and committed from the beginning. I thank them. I thank the staff. I passed by the little box or little sleeves with the bulletins and annual meeting report and other sorts of things in it. The way I know Jan helps further communication through emails and other ways. Thank you for our staff, for Mark, who, among others, along with building and grounds members who have shoveled snow this week to keep things safe for our community, even if we can't come in and enjoy the meeting spaces. I give thanks for the music team. My goodness, a year ago we didn't know who would be our organist, who would be our director of music. Well, we've got Julie and we got Joe to help. Julie's roommate, Joe Boozer, who plays violin and flute. But my gosh, Julie is such a wonderful, gifted musician, and we give thanks for her. And Christian, he has come into a very bizarre situation, but he's come into it fully, and he gives so much, and he shows so much of the potential for us. We can hardly wait to let this loose when we can resume again. So I'm thankful for the staff. And then finally, most of all, I'm thankful for you. Because again, we couldn't do any of this were it not for you. Well, I ended last year saying we enter into 2020 without 2020 vision. Well, here's the sad truth of it. We enter 2021 without 2020 vision either. We don't know what the year will bring, but we are reassured, and I would ask that we are resolved that whatever comes, we will continue to gather as the church. Now, as we continue to do what we've been doing for 10 months, we will continue to gather as the church in all the ways I've tried to touch on here today. And when we return, we will gather once more as the church in all the ways that so deeply bless us and the world around us. I want to end with the last words of Amanda Gorman, the poet at this past Wednesday's inauguration, for words of hope and encouragement. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it. Well, may we be so brave, and so may we enter a new dawn that waits to bloom for us all. My report, the state of the cure. I'll make that available later. I see a hand up. Mark and Debbie, do you have something you want to say at this point? Oh, no, it's a hand up. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Next on the agenda, the election of the vestry. If you have, again, the written report, either electronically or a hard copy available, we're going to page 7. Before we turn our attention to the details on pages 7 and 8, just want to say a word of thanks to the vestry, to all of the vestry who have served the past year or years in these unprecedented times, to the wardens, to all the vestry members, to the treasurer, to the assistant treasurer, and to our clerk who keeps all of us in line. So thank you, one, and thank you all. I'm reminded early on, I think probably a Zoom call with within the diocese. It was probably in March when we were first shutting things down. I remember a conversation, I think it was a standing committee call, and the 3 clergy members of standing committee at that time were Roy Green, myself, and Kelly Mann. Roy, of course, has served as a priest longer than I have, and I've been ordained now for 32 years, I guess. But Kelly Mann was rather recently ordained, and he turned in the course of one of these early Zoom calls to Roy and to myself, thinking that these old guys knew something about what to do during this pandemic. And we reassured him very, very quickly that we were in uncharted waters, all of us. None of us knew what we were doing. So in this case, being older doesn't necessarily make us wiser. So Kelly, by the way, has done I think a rather remarkable job in his own right. So I give him all props. But folks have been dealing with this in ways that none of us knew how to deal with it. So again, my word of thanks to Kelly and to anyone who has tried to figure out what to do. But a special thanks to our vestry members. By the way, Judy, if you're not keeping track, I now saw 52. I think I saw 53 a moment ago, so people have continued to add on to the meeting today. Well, 52 is more than 52 people. It's 52 of you logged on again. But a special word of thanks to our retiring members, Chris Bell, Jennifer McAfee, Mark Welch, plus the wardens, David Depew, Junior Warden, and Debbie Welch, Senior Warden. A big round of thanks to them. So everybody just clap your hands, wave your hands, put on party balloons, whatever makes it work. So thank you one, thank you all. I announce formally that I have decided and asked, and he has agreed to appoint, which is the rector's prerogative, the senior warden, and I have appointed Bill Carrington to become the new senior warden effective at this meeting. And I thank you, Bill, for agreeing to do so. The vestry has chosen, in the way the bylaws are written, the vestry chooses and the annual meeting approves the junior warden. So the vestry has chosen Paula Pyron to be junior warden. And so at this point, I'll accept a motion to approve. I think I see Pete Lovering's hand go up first. Is there a second?
Second.
Todd Carey, boy, you got it out there, man. Good job. So it's been moved and seconded. I am going to ask you now to vote to approve Paula Pyron to become the new junior warden. I know I'm asking a lot of you. This is something we've never done before. The votes are coming in. Almost everybody is recording a vote. I am going to end polling in 3 seconds, 2, 1. And I can confirm that we have unanimous votes in favor of Paula Pyron as the junior warden. And I thank you, Paula. And that should also have gone off your screen now if I did my job right. Thank you, Judy, for confirming that. Next, we turn our attention to the election of the new vestry. For better or for worse, our bylaws do not allow for nominations from the floor. You had an opportunity to let us know back in the fall and as late as the first Sunday of January if you had nominations from the congregation, but no nominations came in that way. The vestry nominating committee presented a slate of nominees to fill the 5 vacancies we have available, three-year terms. And then because we pulled Bill Carrington out of the vestry and the vestry pulled Paula Pyron out of the vestry, we created 2 one-year vacancies. So that is what we have before us. I am going to ask for a motion to dispense with our requirement to vote by secret ballot and to elect by acclamation. Is there a motion? I think Mark Welch got that in, and I'm going to let Celine Burt get credit for the second. And we're going to vote on those separately, but I'm going to take one motion to allow us to do both. So the first question is the 3-year terms. To dispense with ballots and elect by acclamation the following persons to 3-year terms in the vestry: Judy Boone, Barbara Reynolds, and Carol Spongberg. And I see most votes have come in, so I'm going to close balloting in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. And by acclamation. 50 of you got votes in. That's the highest so far. Excellent. Thank you. And separately, then the vote for the 2 1-year terms. Dispense with ballots and elect by acclamation the following persons to 1-year terms on the vestry: Judy Ingalls and Julie Lear. I remind you, they are eligible to run for full 3-year terms next year if they have so much fun, and that's my goal, is to have so much fun this year that they want to run for 3-year terms next year. And again, most of you are let those votes come in. I'm going to close voting in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. And I think we have clearly done that. So thank you all. Thank you, one, and thank you all for your willingness to serve. It's going to be it's always a different vestry. I was going to say it's going to be a different vestry. Of course, it's always a different vestry. Every year we get it done. Question I see Barbara Reynolds has asked, will Bill and Paula then fulfill their terms on vestry after they've served as wardens? And no, they've stepped aside from their terms, and they only had 1 year left anyhow. So when they served at least 1 year as warden, they will have rotated off vestry in any event. So that concludes their service as vestry members at large, but now they've stepped up to warden positions. And again, I thank them both for that. I will say that vestry members, I'll be sending out in the next couple of days, probably not today, but to the newly elected vestry, I'll be sending you out some information about trying to get us together for an orientation. Last year, we got together the Saturday after the annual meeting. We sat together, we had lunch together, we played games together. Oh, it was so much fun. And we thought we knew how the year was going to play out. Well, you know what they say about making plans. God has been laughing really hard this year. So, no, I gotta take that back. I think God has been crying a lot this year. I think God weeps with us as we weep. So, I'll be sending out something. We're going to do some kind of orientation. It'll be different, obviously, than it was last year. I refer you to page 9 for the commissioning of new vestry members. And I will say this is going to be done awkwardly this year. I thought about how we might do this, and I'm just going to say it's going to be done awkwardly, but I do want us to commission these new vestry members for their new role. Okay, I want to commission them for their new role, and so I will ask Debbie, will you be the representative for the nominating committee? So I'll ask you to unmute yourself. Thank you, and you'll speak on behalf of the whole nominating committee. And then new vestry members, I will ask you to unmute yourself when it's time to respond with the "I will, with God's help." And then I'm going to ask you later on this, when it's time for the people to respond loudly from home, but do not unmute yourselves. Because I got to tell you, that's just painful when 58 voices come out on a Zoom call at the same time. So do it from home and do it loudly, do it enthusiastically, but do it with a mute button on, please. Brothers and sisters in Christ Jesus, we are all baptized by the one Spirit into one body and given gifts for a variety of ministries for the common good. Our purpose is to commission these persons in the name of God and of this congregation as members of the vestry, a ministry to which we have called them. Debbie, on behalf of the nominating committee, are these persons you are to present prepared by a commitment to Christ as Lord, by regular attendance at worship, and by the knowledge of their duties to exercise their ministry to the honor of God and the well-being of God's church?
We believe they are.
And now to the vestry members newly elected, now being commissioned. You have been called to serve in leadership in this congregation. Will you, as long as you are engaged in this ministry, perform it with diligence?
I will, with God's help.
Will you faithfully and reverently execute the duties of your ministry to the honor of God and the benefit of the members of this congregation?
I will, with God's help.
Now I address the entire congregation. People of Trinity, you have asked these persons to serve as members of the vestry. Will you support them through your participation in the life of Trinity, through offering the gifts God has given you, and through your prayers? Together, the Lord gives wisdom. From the mouth of God come knowledge and understanding. The Lord stores up wisdom for the upright and is a shield to those who walk in integrity. Let us pray. O eternal God, the foundation of all wisdom and the source of all courage, enlighten with your grace the wardens and vestry of this congregation, and so rule their minds and guide their counsels, that in all things they may seek your glory and promote the mission of your church, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. And in the name of God and of this congregation, we commission you, get my pictures back in front of me so I don't mess up. We commission you, Judy Boone, Judy Ingalls, Barbara Reynolds, Carol Spongberg, and Julie Lear. We commission you as wardens or as members of the vestry. We commission you also, Bill and Paula, as wardens in this congregation. Thank you. We now turn our attention to vestry reports. On page 10, again, of your printed booklet, Debbie Welch has provided a report on her behalf. I think really on behalf of the whole vestry. I will ask if Debbie, you want to add anything to what you have put. Oh, hang on a second. I'm going to back up. Judy, you wanted to say something, did you?
The election of convention delegates and alternates.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, Debbie, hold on to that. Yeah, actually, there's one more thing I wanted to say. Now that I backed up, let me back up a little bit to the very end of our election of vestry members. I have the civilian, if you will, name tags for vestry members. Because you remember, vestry members have name tags that say their name and then it says vestry. I have your civilian name tags to give you. You don't get them until we start worshiping together. So even if you're you're one of 12 people who are here the first Sunday we get to do a little bit of worship together, then you can get it. But until then, just hang on to your old one. Bring it back with you though that first Sunday you're back, and we'll be spreading that out, I suspect, over many months before we finally get those vestry name tags all sorted out. And so too, you new members of the vestry, bring your old name tag, your civilian name tags, if you will, with you the first time you come back, and I'll swap it out for one that says you're a vestry member now. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, Judy, for keeping me honest on that. So that's what Judy does for us so well. Election of convention delegates. Our canons, I think, say that we elect delegates to convention at the annual meeting, and then it immediately adds, or the vestry does so. I must say, I don't think we've really laid the groundwork for this election very well this year. We have talked about it just a little bit, and I have 3 people who have volunteered, who have stepped forward to say they would like to serve as delegates, or would be willing to at least. Bill Brisson, Terry Ramsdorf, Mr. Terry Ramsdorf, and Kim English have all offered that, but we don't have the full 5 delegates we need. Plus, frankly, it'd be good to elect an alternate or 2 as well, so we have someone to back up. I'm willing to go ahead with the election. I'm also very willing to simply say we aren't ready to do it yet. And David Depew points out it was an honor for him to go when he went. Yeah, thank you. I don't want to discourage you from simply stepping up and volunteering your name right now, but I'm also willing to allow that maybe we should just hold off on this with those 3 names and refer this to the vestry to act upon. Convention is scheduled for October 15 through 17. If you know what you're going to be doing in the middle of October, you know, you're a better person than I. So October 15 through 17, I confirmed the date and the location with Lisa Boquist, our diocesan administrator, this past week. It is going to be held, God willing, she hastens to add, God willing, in Pendleton. So you have to be prepared to drive. You have to be prepared to get yourself accommodated at the casino there in Pendleton. That's where the convention is being hosted. And then join the fun in October. So I'm going to pause for a second to see if I get more people saying, I want to be a delegate. And if not, I'm going to ask for a motion to refer the question to the vestry with those names already noted to be considered. I am not seeing, nor am I hearing, any enthusiastic follow-ups at the moment. In the absence of anything more definitive.
I move we refer it to the vestry.
Thank you. It's been moved that we
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you. There's a second. I did see a chat, and I want to just read it carefully. Peggy, and Peggy will have done this many times, saying, I encourage those who have not experienced to do so. It can be very rewarding. Yes, those of you who haven't done it will, I think, find that to be a good experience.
Excuse me, who seconded?
I don't know that I paid attention. I'm sorry, who
I
seconded?
did. Todd.
Todd, thank you, Todd. Moved and seconded without any more discussion, and I don't have this set up as a question to poll. All those in favor, just wave at the camera or put your thumbs up or whatever else you want to do. And I'm seeing only positive responses, so we'll take that as a vote in favor of referring this to the vestry. Thank you. Okay, now, Debbie, vestry reports, starting with Senior Warden's report, page 10. Debbie, do you wish to add to what you've written there?
I think my report is fine.
I think it's lovely, thank you. As submitted, sometimes we say by title. Bob Hahn, are you here? I don't remember, and I don't want to call you out, but your name's on the report for Building and Grounds, page 11. Hearing no immediate response, we'll accept that report by title, as we say. On page 12, you have the report of the stewardship team. It actually has no numbers in it in terms of giving, in terms of dollars. The stewardship team has met and had to figure out how to do its work, as we always have to do, differently. And that's, you know, the guiding principle for everything for the last 10 months. We do what we do differently. And stewardship team was no exception. Wonderful team. And I'll tell you, they have agreed, every one of them, that they're happy to serve for another year because they have found the work so gratifying. And they're looking for a couple of new folks to join them. I think 3 of them actually attended a Zoom workshop yesterday, offered by the Episcopal Network for Stewardship. I think it is. It's TENS, T-E-N-S. They attended a workshop yesterday, and I think the summary report was, we're doing pretty well by the standards that offered by the experts. We're doing pretty well, and there are probably some other things we can do better. It's a little bit of both, but it's mostly we're doing things pretty well. So that was gratifying. So I want to say a word of thanks to the members of the team, to Suzanne, Brady, David Childers, Jane Davis, and Bob Hahn, our core team, as well as to Paula Pyron, whose hospitality requirements this year were minimal, but she was still involved, and to Joan Wellman, our contribution secretary, who records and gives us lots of help and advice along the way. Jan Stalker, of course, our parish administrator, and though he's not in the report, I should add Jeff Bullock, who's kind of a spiritual advisor to the team, and we appreciate his wisdom shared. So that's the report of the stewardship team in somewhat more detail in the annual report on page 12. Now, without any more ado, I want to turn it over to the treasurer, who will offer her report on behalf of the Finance Committee and the vestry.
Thank you, Jed. This, I have to admit, this is very different from what I thought it was going to be last March when we closed the doors of the building, but we didn't close the doors to your heart, and that is part of what I thank you for. What you're looking at right now is our assets. We have real estate. Yes, we do, 2 buildings. And that is our current value on that property. And then we have 2 other numbers down there. The first one is funds that Trinity owns. Those are donations that you have made that Trinity takes care of and prudently invests. And you'll see Bill's report to show that we got a 15% return on our investments in the stock market this year. The cash and invested assets that we manage have to do with Family Kitchen and Condega. And those are funds that are very, very set apart, but we still work with the management on those. So that is what we're looking at as far as our total assets right now. And this page breaks down a bit more of how those funds are put together. As you can see at the bottom, Family Kitchen and Condega are separated out. The other funds are capital improvement money. In the past, we've been setting money aside so that when the time comes that we need to repair something major at the church, it's there. We did not set anything aside this last year because of our various limitations. Vestry to be determined is money that has come in that the vestry figures out what they want to do. So there's $250,000 plus they're available for us to invest as the vestry decides, or use as the vestry decides. Our equity sharing investment is the money that we invested in Jed's house, and the way that values of property are going up in Bend, that is turning out to be a very good investment. Our return on that will actually occur when Jed gets around to selling the house, which won't be anytime soon if I have anything to say about it. The money in the Monahan Trust is money that we received and is invested, the same with the ferry money and other individual funds. That $125,000 puts us in a spot where various people have donated money saying, I want this to go to the music program. I want this to be used for outreach. I want this to be used for something specific. And so those funds are there, as well as our reserves. Like everybody in their household, hopefully, if I have more income than I have expenses, I put some money aside for the time when that changes. And thank you very much. We have been doing that the last few years, and it's going to come in handy. The Monahan Trust from Mary Monahan of COCC, I believe that's correct. Yes. So if you have questions, put them up in the chat. It's going to show up at the bottom of the screen so that I can answer the questions. This is working well. Thank you, Jed. Next page. And here is what is going on. Our budget, the actual for 2019, we were actually $6,900 in the red, excuse me, in the black.
Thank you.
And as you recall, I set up with the finance committee and the vestry, the budget for 2020 for us to have a deficit, and then asked you to consider, if possible, to increase your contributions a little bit so that we could whittle down that deficit. And your generosity is amazing. Next page. So the year we expected to end with a $10,000 deficit, when we were in a spot where we thought it was going to be a normal year, ended up with tremendous hiccups, and we ended the year with only a $13,000 deficit. I thought it was going to be over 100,000 for sure with the way things looked in March. So you have been an amazing support of this organization, and I thank you for that. Next page. This is how it works out. We ask you to pledge for the year, and then we actually discount that pledge amount a little bit as to the number we put in our budget, because things happen and sometimes people can't keep up their pledge. But this year, you actually ended up with contributions $1,500 more than we anticipated pledge-wise. That was incredible. Plate and sustain giving are contributions that we receive from people who don't sign a pledge card, but continue to support our programs. And again, that was more than we anticipated. Gifts and overpaid pledges, again, you beat the heck out of that number. Thank you so much. Trinity Foundation, as always, has been supporting us with $10,000. And if we have other concerns that we need to have some support, they're there to help us out. Interest, we don't ever budget anything. That $48 is what we earned on our money market account at Umpqua Bank, which is where we have our checking. Not much, but that's okay. And so when we have our total revenues, our revenues are within $100 of what we had budgeted. Bob and Trinity Foundation, the Trinity Foundation, thank you very much, is an organization that accepts large contributions. If someone dies and mentions us in their will, as happened last year, as you'll see in the foundation report, we received a contribution from the estate of, oh sure, I marked it and here it is. We have money in there from the Jean Gillespie Fund, Hal Gillespie's fund, the building fund, general endowment fund, and we received an additional contribution from somebody who died. And can somebody help me out with that? Who died? A lot of people died, but one of them made a contribution.
Was it Ken Sandine's wife?
No, it was not.
Okay.
She used to
It was a Connie Jarvis.
Thank you. It was Connie Jarvis made a donation. She mentioned us in her will. And so we increased that. And that is a separate investment fund that is designed to equalize out our investing and put more eyes on how we do things, which seems to be working very well for us. So that is that one. And our net operating revenue, as I said, is within $100 of what we thought it was going to be. Thank you so much. Next page. So what happened? Our clergy expenses were a little bit lower than anticipated, and general office, you know, Jed didn't take his sabbatical, so we weren't putting out quite as much on other things, and he's hung around a lot. He didn't take all of his time, and so we have been very blessed to have him handy. Our administrative costs, because we were closed a little bit, we were down a little bit there. Our net property expenses were more than we budgeted. And the reason for that is explained down at the bottom. When a group uses our space, they make a contribution to help cover the maintenance. We don't call it income because then we have to pay diocesan assessment. And really the only thing we do with that money is to cover expenses. And Stacy, the money that's in the foundation is money that we are not paying assessment on unless we use it to cover operating expenses. So that is a way for someone to make a donation to Trinity, the same as if they made it to Trinity and gave us some specifics for it. That money is not something that we pay assessment on unless we use it for operating expenses. So our worship and music was a little bit less than we budgeted, partly because we didn't have a full music team for the entire year. As you recall, we had, our music team did not come on until partway through the year. And so that, and family ministries, we have tried to keep that up a little bit. And parish development, you know, we haven't been having coffee hour with coffee and those sorts of events this year. So those sorts of things have been under expenses. So we were within, you know, $3,000, $4,000 of what we expected on expenses. Other questions? Okay. Yes, yeah. What is family ministry? Family ministry, Jed, can you help me out with that one?
It's a little bit of an umbrella, but I think mostly it covers children's chapel sorts of things. I mean, I think that's why it's up as much as it was above. So we've been doing a lot of mailings to kids this year. That's one of the wonderful things we've been doing, old-fashioned U.S. mail. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure what else there might be in there if somebody wants to add to it.
Thank you.
Carrie, I can't make my chat work. This is Jeannie McBurnett. But on the previous slide, totals didn't add up right. You don't have to go back to it, but I just want somebody else to look at it to see if we need to correct it before we approve the report. Sorry.
Let's go back a page. Oh, Jed is just walked away. He's going to get his calculator.
Well, why don't you go on and we'll just, it's just a technicality. So please go on.
All right, what are your concerns on this page?
Not that. Okay, go. Wait a minute. It's not that one. It's, where am I? I'm sorry. I didn't catch it in time. It's not that one. Just let me, I don't have the report in front of me, so let's just pass on it and you can look later.
Okay, as we look to have this approved, we'll look for other addition errors.
What I noticed was that the actuals all kind of, that basically the two columns should have been reversed in terms of which was higher or lower, because there was about a $6,000 difference. It looked like to me, maybe. Anyway, so, but not this chart, just.
Okay, we'll take a review of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. I'm sorry to, yeah.
Okay, so our budget for 2021. I'm sorry, guys, we're not getting that income from the shared maintenance at this point. Interestingly enough, it would have, if we had hit our budget number, it would have been $14,500. So we would have been in the black, but we weren't. And so we are now in a spot where we're putting together the budget for 2021 with the idea that we are not going to have that shared maintenance to help cover costs. And doggone it, there are still light bills and so forth coming on. So we have set the budget up at a $54,000 deficit. Part of the reasoning here is our pledge income. Last year, even as we discounted the pledge income, we received 381. This year, our pledge income so far has come in at 370. So that's what we built the budget on. And if your wallets and your generosity make it so that you possibly can increase that, that's terrific, because there's a spot for it. Sustained and plate giving, you'll see we put in at 25,000. As I said, those are folks who make contributions, just don't sign pledge cards. Special gifts and overpaid pledges, we put in $10,000 there because we never know what it's going to be. We never know what's going to be happening. And so if somebody were to increase their contributions, that's where we would, one of the places we could show it up. And Trinity Foundation consistently gives us $10,000 a year. And as I said before, they have more money available if we have some reason, some event, or some happening that we need extra funds for that. And we never budget for net investment interest because who knows what that's going to be. So we've scheduled our net operating income to be less than last year because that's realistic. We're hoping that after April, we'll start to be able to bring other groups in. We'll see. Our expenses are going to be a little higher. We've committed to having a cost of living increase for our staff every year. That's important for us to have. That's an acknowledgement that we know they're doing a great job. They're getting the job done for us. And that affects both the clergy and the admin. Our net property is where that contra expense of people helping us pay those maintenance costs. And you can see what we brought in the last few years. It was down almost $20,000 from last year. So yes, what does the 1999 budget mean?
Oh, that's a
Excuse
mistake.
me,
2021.
that
budget.
is a misprint. That should be 2020 budget. Thank you. 2021 budget. Thank you for noticing. You know, we're doing a lot of numbers here. So yes, that's the 2021 budget in the far right column. So our total expenses are going to be $54,000 more. Now, with our reserves, the money that we've set aside for the years that were more income than expenses, at the end of 2020, we still have $71,000 in the bank. And at the end of 21, we're expecting to have 17,000. Yeah, that's a lot less, but that's what we saved it for. That's what you saved it for, so that we could continue to have Trinity operating, so that our parishioners and the people in the community can have access. And as soon as we're able to increase, thank you. As soon as we're able to increase those numbers, we will. Yes, we applied for a PPP loan in 2020, and we did receive some funds. Those are not reflected in anything that you see because they're still a liability. We haven't gotten forgiveness for those funds. But we're anticipating that that will happen because it was set up to pay salaries in 2020, and we did keep everyone on staff. So as far as we can tell, we met the standards to have it forgiven, and then there is a substantial number there. The determination as to whether to do a PPP loan request for 2021 is something that's still up in the air, but I got to admit, with the way we're operating right now, I honestly think there are a lot of businesses out there that didn't get money in 2020 that I would rather see using those funds. So the Finance Committee and the vestry will make that decision as the year progresses. We shall see. But it's a good point to bring up, and it will be part of that. When is the forgiveness? Gosh, only knows. The government so far put out documentation to forgive all loans under 50,000 and all loans under over 200,000. For those of us who are in the middle, there has been they haven't said anything. So Umpqua Bank is keeping on top of that, and they will let us know as soon as we can apply for that forgiveness. Yeah, I know, it's government. Sometimes they do things really, really fast. Sometimes it takes a little while longer. So we're working on it, and we're keeping up with it. So thank you so much for your support in the past, and your support as you continue and we go forward to make a difference and be God's hands in the community. We are the light because we can see it. We can see the light, and we are the light as we go forward. So thanks very much for your help and support as we make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, everybody. You'll see on page 21 a bit of narrative about all of the numbers. If you have other questions, I remind you Terry's available to help answer those. The Finance Committee meets monthly to prepare work for the vestry, and the Finance Committee would also be happy to entertain any questions and always happy to consider more help. So make yourself known if you'd like to Terry for any of that. Bill Brisson, on behalf of the investment subcommittee of the Finance Committee, has offered a report. That's bottom of page 21 and through page 22 of your written report. Dave Carroll, are you here? Again, I hate to call somebody out. I think they're on the coast, enjoying some time away. Dave Carroll, on behalf of the Trinity Foundation, has prepared a report on page 23 of your report. And then we turn to the last items of business, the various commission and ministry reports. And I am going to refer you to those, and for the most part, assume that they are offered, if you will, by title. I will pause very briefly on each of them in case the author of a given report wants to say a little bit more. By the way, there is one touchdown scored in the game. I'm not going to tell you who scored it in case you're recording it, but one team is ahead 7-0 last I looked. Go, Aaron. Okay. Jeannie, on behalf of ministries, anything to add to what you've written? Hearing none. Altergeld, Kate Huck. Hearing
Nothing to add to what I've written.
Thank you. Children's Ministries, Julie Lear. She has stepped away from her computer. I can see her picture on my screen. Thank you, Julie, and for all the teachers. Very challenging to figure out how to do children's ministries, as you can imagine right now. Donna Young, on behalf of the Labyrinth group. Also kind of heartbreaking. That's one thing it's hard to figure out how to do virtually. I want to pause very briefly on page 26, the liturgy planning report. Obviously, we've done what we've done, and we've done it all differently since March. In addition to what I've written there, I just want to underscore, emphasize the music portion of things. Again, a year ago, Bill Carrington, I think even by now, Bill Carrington had already stepped aside from the organ bench. And we were doing substitute organists, perhaps. I know Bill had surgery early in the year last year. Kathy Bullock, thankfully, gosh, what a gift, both of them. Kathy stayed on as our director of music through the first half of the year, and again, was a huge gift to us in those times. And then we were so deeply, deeply blessed to welcome new musicians, best music team ever. Julie Gebeschausen on organ and piano, mostly organ. Truly she's just a wonderful person. She's just lovely to work with, as well as lovely for us to hear. And then her roommate, Julie told me out of the blue one day, well, my roommate, she plays flute and violin. Well, she plays really anything. You give her a saw and she'll play it. I'm still waiting for the saw to come out on a Sunday morning. But she said she can play anything. And so she's been coming into a company with Julie. And then, of course, we added to the mix Christian Clark in the middle of the summer. And what a huge gift he is going to be to our music program. He has already done so much working with our choir, doing virtual rehearsals and other things, preparing music week by week, along with Julie and the rest of our team. We are deeply, deeply blessed to have those here. And I can hardly wait, as I mentioned in my State of the Cure address, I can hardly wait to release them when they get to meet with the choir in person and meet with all of you in person. I am looking forward to that tremendously, as I suspect are you all. So, added emphasis. Moving ahead, music ministry. Christian has submitted his own report, as you'll see on page 27. I don't know if he rushed home after worship. They were actually recording something after worship between the worship and the annual meeting. So I'm not sure what there is. I see Gail said virtual choir is fun, which I gotta say is a shock to me, but good to hear. So thank you. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, choir one and all. And we've enjoyed, of course, some of those choral pieces. Turning the page 28. Tom and Shirley, do you have anything to add to your adopt a mile? Not to 2 miles. No, let's move on. Marie, if you're here, anything to add to alternative Christmas giving?
No, nothing to add.
Thank you.
All there, but thank you to everybody who really were very generous this year.
Very generous. Wonderful. Thank you. The bazaar and bake sale, what a disappointment that was. So we're looking forward to 2021. So don't stop crafting. Adrian, Shirley, are you here and/or do you have anything to add?
I don't have anything to add, but hopefully next year will be a huge extravaganza because we've all had lots of time.
That's right. Condega, Rick Nagus? Nothing to add. We will welcome NOLA to our forum in a couple of weeks. I think it's on February 14th. In addition to what Rick's written there, do join us for the forum on February 14th. Cove Copy, Zoom to Santa. Santa, are you wanting to say anything else? Just thumbs up. Okay, thank you. ERD, our coordinator, Jane Davis, do you have anything to add? And Peggy's added back to choir. Everyone's welcome to rehearsals, even if you don't feel comfortable recording your voice. Okay, moving it back on page 30, ERD, Family Kitchen. Donna Berklow will be our special guest at the forum on February 7th. As you'll see, perhaps, I actually don't think I've read carefully here. Yes, she's added some things. Meals are up. I thought about grabbing a sandwich before the annual meeting, and I went outside and the line was longer than I wanted to face. So I decided to let the folks there get their food, and I would eat when I get home. But the Family Kitchen, as I said, haven't missed a meal, and they're doing more. And so come to the forum on February 7th and join us, and Donna's going to tell us what they're doing, both old and new. Gifts for the Christ Child. Judy Warren, do you have anything to add? No, thank you. Turning the page 32, the Latino Opportunity Visioning Team, Love, Betsy Warner, anything to add?
Nothing to add, thanks.
Thank you. Outreach Commission, Debbie Welch, newly point person for outreach.
Nothing to add except we need new members.
All right, there you go. Thank you. Pastoral Care Commission, Pat Kroll is the new head this year. Coordinator. Anything to add? Hearing none, we'll move on to page 34. Sermon Reflections Group, Mrs. Terry Ramsdorf wearing a different hat. Anything to add? Hearing none. Paula Pyron, hospitality team hasn't been real busy this year, have you?
No, we haven't, but I have one thing to add.
Yes.
Hospitality, in terms of us all being able to get together again, is for everyone to sign up with the county to register for their vaccine. And if you need help with it, let us know. I know somebody very technical, and reach out to somebody else that's not here on the screen today within the community, and encourage them also to do the same and see if they need any help with it. Because you just got, it's a very simple process, but if you don't have a computer or have computer access, all of us do because we're on the Zoom call. But think about calling somebody else and seeing if they need any help with it.
And I did see that Mark Welch rather, dropped into the chat box the link for how you can register to get yourself in the queue for a vaccine. Get the new jab. If you haven't yet seen the video, it's great fun. Have the new jab. Jeannie McBurnett, I think you sent that out to a few folks this week. So have the new jab. Trinity Men's Group, Les Davis, Tom Baxter, anything to add? Here. Yeah, Jane? Less? Okay, that's good. Okay. Jane then, Trinity Women's Group, anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Well, look, I just got to the end of my report. That was the last report on page 35. Last but not least, I hasten to add. Okay. If there is nothing else before us, and as far as I know, there is nothing else before us, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mark Welch has moved, and I think Stacy Abina has her hand up. Stacy, is that to second or is that to add something?
It is to second.
It is to second. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. I'm going to ask for a vote in a moment, but first I'm going to offer that closing prayer because I don't want to end the meeting and have you leave before I do that final prayer. And the final prayer is really the blessing we add, as I said at the end of the service today. Normally, I don't do a blessing and dismissal at the end of the worship before the annual meeting because I expect you to go straight into the annual meeting. This year, of course, I said, it's not a normal year, so I'm going to offer that final blessing and then I'll have a vote. Normally, I'd also ask for volunteers to help with chairs and all the rest. You're off the hook this year, but come back next year, ready to work. And finally, I do remind you again that you can get copies of the written report at the office, outside the office doors. They're readily available right now and throughout the week. You can go online and find the written report. You will have this video at some point, I expect, available for you to see, so you can come back to the meeting, tell your friends. You can do that at your leisure. And of course, in the next newsletter, which goes out, I think the end of this week, it'll go in the mail, you'll have the ability to get a recap of the annual meeting in the February newsletter. It will also tell you about Lent, if you can hardly imagine that, which will not be what we're used to, but we'll still have fun. Oh, cake, I see you brought Bernie along. He's a good addition. Okay, I think that's all. I'm going to take a vote in a second, but first, go forth into the world in peace. Be strong and of good courage. Hold fast to that which is good. Render to no one evil for evil, but love the Lord your God, love your neighbor, and love yourself. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. And go ahead, add those hallelujahs, because I know you're wanting to. All right, if we are ready, then the vote to see if we can actually end this meeting. Gosh, if you say no, we'll have to stay. Get to stay. Nobody is saying no, I want to keep talking. Closing polling in 3, 2, 1.
Chad, we got a football game to get to.
All right, get to your game. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.